My next guest is the author of the upcoming book, The Man Who Hacked the World, a ghostwriter's descent into the madness with John McAfee. Alex Cody Foster, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
I got to be honest, I don't do a lot of tech stuff, but I'm interested in this because McAfee just seems like, all right, when I think of Mark Zuckerberg, I think of Data from Star Trek The Next Generation. You see a lot of these tech guys are really kind of nervous, introverted nerds. He seemed like, if there was a word for it, gonzo in the world of tech. Like he might have been, found face down in the Viper Room or something like that at some point. Like he never came across as this like Steve Jobs mom jeans kind of guy.
He was never mom jeans or turtlenecks, John, but it's funny you mention that because I just went over a transcript that I did with him and from an interview, and he said, Alex, there's a reason why I don't want you to do interviews with me. I said, why is that, John? And he said, well, I read Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and, there's no such thing as interviews. You're either recording the story as you live it, or you're recording the story not living it from 3 degrees separation or something. And I said, so what am I? And he said, you're living the story with me. You have to be here with me. You have to see the crazy things. You have to go on the run from the cartel. You have to go on the run from the SEC. You have to be in Europe with me. You have to have guns held to your head next to me. He said, that is journalism, my son. I said, but I'm not a journalist. I'm a writer.
For the record, I said before we went on the air, Hunter S. Thompson, so I was making the right reference.
Yeah, you were. Exactly. I read that reference today.
Well, again, it's just when you think of guys like Steve Jobs or any of these people, just the idea of guns and tattoos and living in shady places and disappearing and being accused of faking your own death and accused of murdering your neighbor. I mean, this is like really bizarre stuff.
It's Steve Jobs meets Apocalypse Now. If Steve Jobs at his zenith, the most money that he ever had, if he went off the rails and he became this sort of Colonel Kurtz-like figure in the jungles of wherever, that would be the story. But a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of very successful people, they don't do that because they lead these padded sort of existences. They're very, they lead sort of normal lives. John didn't want normal because normal was uncomfortable for him.
I was going to say Steve Jobs meets Tyler Durden from Fight Club. Right? I mean, he seems like the kind of guy that would show up to Silicon Valley with a black eye and a missing tooth.
Steve Jobs?
No, John McAfee.
John McAfee. Oh, John McAfee did. John McAfee did. Yeah, and it's ironic you mentioned that. I went on a podcast a few days ago. I had a black eye. I fell on my e-bike, but everyone on the podcast they said like, "Did you get in a fight?"
How did he become this sort of gonzo guy? Was it tech first, gonzo second, or was he always this way and tech just happened for him?
He was always this way, and it wasn't so much tech that did it for him. It was money and power. So I'd like to say that John was sort of like General Zaroff from The Most Dangerous Game, that short story in which a man learns that the most dangerous game is an animal that can reason, and the only animal that can do it is human beings. Right. So that was John in a nutshell. I think he had a lot of power. He had a lot of money, and he ran out of thrills. He ran out of joy, and he needed something to supplement that lack of joy and passion and intrigue. So he created this entire persona based upon that lack.
The Man Who Hacked the World. Do you think he was able to get into government secrets?
I got to make sure I don't get sued here, but the answer is yes. In an ambiguous way, the answer is yes. I do think that he got into government secrets, cartel secrets, a lot of secrets. He lived his life based on the understanding that he had hacked so many people's secrets. That was his life.
Another pop culture reference I might make here. Did you ever see The Lawnmower Man?
No. What's that?
The Lawnmower Man is a movie about Pierce Brosnan plays this, scientist, and he takes this man who's basically slow, kind of a Forrest Gump kind of character, and he hooks him up to what becomes the internet. This is the early 90s, and just starts to feed his brain with everything the computer has to offer. And then it starts to take over his brain, and he becomes kind of self-aware, and he's able to mentally kind of talk to computers, and he descends into madness because now his brain is filled with this new electronic universe of computers that can talk to one another. They weren't calling it the internet when the movie came out, but he went from being kind of a simple guy into almost like the movie Virtuosity. There's another one where just his brain became the computer, and he descends into madness. And I kind of see that in John McAfee, but that's why I asked the question. Was he mad first and tech second, or did tech make him mad? Did the money give him the opportunity to not live a normal life and expand on his madness?
That's an incredible parallel there that you drew. Let me give you an understanding that not a lot of people have because they lack the context from watching the film. I make the statement in the film that I overheard an exchange. No, I didn't overhear it. It was told to me by a member of Team McAfee that John shot his father. And a lot of people have been giving me flack over that statement. And again, I was there for 40 plus days with Team McAfee for 6.5, 7.5 months, a long time all around the world with John. And one of the big stories that I uncovered there was that John shot his father when he was 15 years old, and he had a very abusive father. And this was told to me by a confidant who knew John better than anybody. And John told this story to my confidant. And essentially, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, from there, I'm kind of wanting to know more. How do you go from that into tech? What was his introduction to all of this? I'm going to be honest. I don't know I don't know much about the man's life.
So in my opinion, I think the paranoia stemmed from that incident. If it did happen, I don't know. It was told to me, maybe it didn't. But if that did happen when John was 15, his paranoia likely started right then. And so let's fast forward 15 years to around the time he started McAfee Antivirus. So this was a man trying to sell the American public on the notion that we were going to face this existential threat through our computer software system, which was viruses. So the paranoia was latent within him already. And all of a sudden, it was unleashed. So I think it wasn't so much tech, it was opportunistic. He already had this paranoid sort of background, and now he found a way to monetize it, to take advantage of it.
So you're saying when we were just learning what the internet was, he was like 10 steps ahead of us. Like, we didn't know what a virus was in 1994, you know? I mean, the movie The Net came out not that long after, but we didn't know this stuff. He was thinking, wait a second, if all these computers are talking, bad stuff's going to happen. 30 seconds.
Correct. John was ahead of all of the trends until about 2015. He was ahead of every single trend. I don't know how or why, but this man's brain allowed him to do so. And it still sort of confuses me. It's very ambiguous.